from the newsroom, and with that, viewers, let's move on now. Several Italian unions in the health, education and transport sectors have launched a general strike in response to the budget under Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's hard-right government. Hardline union USB, which is leading the action, argues that wages in Italy are among the lowest in Europe and demands better pay for workers. Students have also joined the strike protesting the budget cuts. They gathered outside Rome's parliament, chanting for more investment in education, holding signs that read "money for schools, not wars." They emphasize their demands for a stronger focus on public services over military service. And now moving on to news from Turkey, where Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan met with his German counterpart Johann Wadephul in Berlin on November 28 to discuss bilateral relations, regional conflicts and Turkey's EU membership process. The talks focused on strengthening economic cooperation, including expanding trade ties and supporting Turkey's participation in the same mechanism. Germany also confirmed progress on the sale of Eurofighter jets, enhancing military and security cooperation. Fidan and Wadephul addressed the war in Ukraine, conflicts in the Middle East, and long-standing bilateral relations. Germany reiterated its support for Turkey's European Union integration, while both countries emphasized deepening economic and security collaboration. Up next, US President Donald Trump says that the US will very soon start taking to stop suspected Venezuelan drug traffickers on land. The Trump administration has been watching Venezuela-related options to combat what it has portrayed as President Nicolas Maduro's role in supplying illegal drugs that may have killed Americans. US forces in the region so far have focused on counter-narcotics operations, even though the assembled firepower far outweighs anything needed for them. US troops have carried out at least 21 strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean and Pacific since September, killing at least 83 people. Let's listen into Trump.
We've been working to deter Venezuelan drug traffickers, of which there are many. Of course, there aren't too many coming in by sea anymore, if you probably noticed that. From sending their poisons into the United States, where they kill hundreds of thousands of people a year. But we're going to take care of that situation. We're already doing a lot. We've almost stopped. It's about 85% stopped by sea. You probably noticed that. People aren't wanting to be delivering by sea. And we'll be starting to stop them by land also. The land is easier. But that's going to start very soon. We warn them, stop sending poison to our country.
Moving on, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has said that the Trump administration is not worthy of cooperation with the Islamic Republic. Speaking on a state-designated day honoring the Basij paramilitary force, Khamenei rejected claims that Iran had contacted Trump or Washington, calling such rumors a pure lie. Khamenei also praised Iran's public unity during the 12-day war with Israel in June despite internal differences. He asserted that Israel and the US had failed to achieve any objectives in the conflict. Khamenei also dismissed claims by former President Trump that US strikes had destroyed Iran's nuclear program, insisting the damage was minimal. Listen in.
شایعاتی درست میکنن که دولت ایران به واسطه فلان کشور پیغام فرستاده به آمریکا. دروغ محض که چنین چیزی حتما وجود نداشت. یه چنین دولتی در قرآن نیست که کسی دولتی مثل جمهوری اسلامی به دنبال ارتباط با او و همکاری با او.
And moving on, viewers, to news from the United Nations. Now, UN Rights Office spokesman Jeremy Lawrence said the incident reflects a pattern of rising Palestinian deaths in the West Bank without accountability, urging an independent investigation. Listen in.
brazen killing by Israeli border police yesterday of 2 Palestinian men in Jenin in the occupied West Bank in yet another apparent summary execution. Killings of Palestinians by Israeli security forces and settlers in the occupied West Bank have been surging without any accountability, even in the rare case when investigations are announced. Impunity for Israel security forces' unlawful use of force and ever-growing Israeli settler violence must end. The High Commissioner urges an independent, prompt and effective investigations into the killings of Palestinians, and those responsible for violations must be held to account.
The Palestinian Authority identified the victims as Yusuf Ali al-Sassa and Ali Muntasir Billah Mahmoud Abdullah, calling the killings a war crime. Israeli forces said they were targeting men involved in attacks, while far-right Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir defended the shootings. Violence in the West Bank has escalated sharply since the start of the Gaza war, with more than 1,000 Palestinians, including 223 children, killed by Israeli forces or settlers, according to the United Nations. Now, Israeli figures say that at least 44 Israelis have been killed in related attacks and operations. Moving on, Syrians gathered in the numbers to mark the first anniversary of a military campaign that led to the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad. The offensive, which lasted just 11 days, saw rebel forces sweep through the country, taking the capital and causing Assad to flee. Demonstrators expressed a sense of freedom, celebrating the end of a decade-long regime, as many feel the tide has shifted in their favor. The lightning advance of rebel forces and troops has remained a significant moment in Syria's struggle, with the anniversary evoking both a sense of victory and hope among the people. Moving on, Peru's judiciary has sentenced former President Pedro Castillo to 11.5 years in prison. The verdict was issued on Thursday and relates to charges of rebellion and conspiracy from 22 years ago, late to 2022. Let's listen in to Norma, Peru's Supreme Court Justice, had to say.
Pedro Castillo Terrones como coautor del delito contra los poderes del Estado y el orden constitucional en la modalidad de conspiración para una rebelión previsto en el artículo 349 del Código Penal en agravio del Estado, y como tal se le impone al sentenciado 11 años, 5 meses y 15 días de pena privativa de libertad de carácter efectivo, que descontada la carcelería que viene sufriendo en mérito a su detención desde el 7 de diciembre de 2022, vencerá el 21 de mayo de 2030.
And Castillo had attempted to dissolve Congress and assume expanded powers, but the move failed and he was removed from office in December 2022. He had been detained throughout the trial as the case progressed. The attempted power shift set off weeks of unrest. Protests erupted across the country against the new government and resulted in dozens of deaths, mostly in regions where Castillo enjoyed stronger support. Last week, during his final defense statement, Castillo dismissed the charges against him. He argued that his attempt to dissolve the Congress did not have the backing of security forces, and his announcement had no practical impact. And moving on, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan praised Pope Leo's position on the Palestinian issue following a meeting in Ankara. Erdogan condemned the Pope and his predecessor for their support of Palestine and called his first overseas visit as Catholic leader a hopeful step for humanity in these times of tension. Erdogan also highlighted the Pope's calls for peace and diplomacy over the Ukraine war, noting their significance. Turkey has been a strong critic of Israel's action in Gaza, and Erdogan has expressed appreciation for the Pope's message on family values. Listen in to what the Turkish president had to say.
Misafirimizin ziyareti bölgesel ve küresel olaylar bağlamında son derece kritik bir zamana tekabül ediyor. insanlığın yön arayışının hızlandığı, küresel düzeyde belirsizliklerin arttığı, Asya'dan Afrika'ya, Latin Amerika'dan Doğu Avrupa'ya gerilimlerin tırmandığı bir dönemde gerçekleşen ziyaretin tüm insanlık için hayırlara vesile olmasını ümit ve arzu ediyorum. Saygıdeğer misafirimiz ve seleflerinin özellikle Filistin meselesine yönelik dirayetli duruşlarını daima takdirle karşıladığımızın bilinmesini isterim.
And with that, it's a wrap on the newsroom, but keep watching NewsX World for more